Got a new sheet here. Herman, I'm trying to make them a little bit bigger, so you can see them better.
I got some things I can read one at a time.
All right.
Yeah, it is.
I tell you what, I know that you need one. I forgot to print you off one, and I'll print you off one too that has the fill-ins, so you can take them home. I'll print one off, don't leave it up, and you can get them to you, but.
Sorry. That's all right.
Whether in the body, out of the body? Is that where we're at tonight? Fine. So I'll give you this one, but then, I'll print one off, that you can actually read. Yeah, I tried to make it a little bit bigger. Oh, you're welcome.
I do too.
Yeah, you're welcome. When I only have like to where it can fit on like one sheet of paper, I don't mind doing that. But when I gotta like print off like multiple pieces of paper, it's kind of hard to do big print like that. So, but all right. Hebrews chapter 1, and we're in the last set of verses in chapter 1, but we're not done with this section of Christ is superior to the angels, because that's going to continue on. And of course, we know that everything in Hebrews is about better. It's about Christ is better. He's better than everything. And so, I hope it's being a help to you, and helping you see the understanding of Hebrews just a little bit better than maybe you have before. And so Hebrews chapter number 1. And we're going to read, let me get there. All right, Hebrews chapter 1. Somebody want to read verses 10 through 14 for us? Hebrews 1, 10 through 14. First one there, go ahead and read. Anybody? Really? There you go.
Lord, in the beginning, laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. They shall perish, but thou remainest. They all shall wax old as doth a garment. And as a vesture soft thou fold them up, and they shall be changed. For thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. But to which of the angels said he at any time, Sit on my right hand, until I make thine enemies thy footstool? Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister to them who shall be heirs of salvation?
And that last verse, that's an encouraging verse. And we're going to get to that one, but that's a real encouraging verse. So if you don't believe in guardian angels, you don't believe Scripture. I used to not believe in guardian angels until I read that verse, and we'll get to that, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But now I don't believe the. Y'all remember the show Angels Among Us? I think it was Angels, or what was that? With that? Touched by an Angel. Now, I don't believe that is that's happening, but I do believe in guardian angels. I do believe that there are ministering spirits among us. Now, does each individual person have its own angel? No, it just says ministering spirits. And so that means that they're out there, and God knows His children, and He dispatches His angels for His children. But like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me find it here on my pad. There it is. All right. Okie doke. Let's see. All right. So the first thing that we need to see tonight in this is if we go back a little bit, verses, I think we were looking at 7, 8, and 9. I think was the last section, and so that said, and again, when he bringeth in the first begotten into the world, he saith, and let all the angels of God worship him. And the angels, he saith, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flaming fire. But unto the Son he saith, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever, a scepter of righteousness of the scepter of thy kingdom. Thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, even thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. So we saw before with Christ there. Let me go back. Does anybody have their list, their sheet from last time? Hebrews 1, 6 through 9. If you want to maybe, because I can pull it up here, but
The first half of this verse, there is no direct Old Testament quotation,
yep,
but the use of the word first begotten is significant.
yep. And because he is superior because of his honor, that's what we're seeing there in verse number 6. And it's really the worship. First we see that the worship, the honor that is given to him through worship, where it's quoted in Psalm 97:7, confounded be all they that serve graven images, they boast themselves of idols, worship him, all ye gods. And so Paul was referencing back, kind of getting a reference, a quotation back to 97:7 there. But then it was the worship where he gets the honor. He's superior in his honor because of the worship. And then he's also superior because of his status. We saw that in verse number 7. And because the angels are servants, and that's actually going to be repeated in this next section of verses, especially there in the last verse number 14 that we'll get to. But then the Son is sovereign, and again that will be repeated. So, like I've told you before, Paul is kind of repeating himself in several instances because he's wanting to get it across to the Hebrews, to the readers, that Christ is superior to the angels. And so he's going to repeat himself multiple times, but he's rewording what he's saying, but he is repeating himself. He's telling the angels are servants and the Son is sovereign. And so we'll see that. We'll see that he's sovereign, and so it breaks it down, his throne, his scepter, then we have his anointing with the oil. And so we saw that, but then we got to go back to the one for tonight. So Hebrews 1, 10 through 14. So the first thing that we see with this being here is he's superior in his existence. And so in verse number 10, it tells us, and thou, Lord, in the beginning has laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. And so what's Paul doing? Paul's going back to Genesis, to the original, to the first book, and he's reminding them of who it is, who's the creator. They say it's God, but Paul is saying it's not only God. The Son, Christ, was there as well. He is God, and so he had a part in the creation. And so this number 10 is actually a quote from Psalm 102, 25 through 27. That's Psalm 102, 25 through 27. It says, of old hast thou laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. They shall perish, but thou shalt endure. Yea, all of them shall wax old like a garment. As a vesture shalt thou change them, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall have no end. And as we'll see, this one psalm, Paul is pretty much speaking of that in verses 10, 11, and 12. Paul is he is quoting that psalm in 3 verses. And so the first thing about his superior, what makes him superior in his existence? Well, the first thing is he's superior in his existence as creator. I don't know why that's delayed tonight. As creator. Chad, you want to go to the next slide? Must have froze up. All right. As creator. So he's superior in his existence as creator. So in here, Paul is making an emphasis here to let them know that it's Christ that is the creator, not the angels. And being the creator meant that Christ created the angels as well. Because we could, I think we could go back, let's see here. Because of verse number 7, it said, in the angels he saith, who maketh his angels spirits. So as we see now, Paul is kind of repeating himself, and he says, and thou, Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. And so he's saying, so he's created the angels, and so Christ is the creator, not the angels. This definitely makes Christ superior to the angels, him being the creator. Christ had both the ability to make the universe, and he has the authority to rule the universe. Inside of these three verses, verses 10, 11, and 12, I've been kind of pondering over these verses. And if you just read those three verses, let's read them again. I really want you to grab those verses. So verse 10, it's pretty much a repeat of Genesis about the creation. It says, and thou, Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. But let's look at verse 11 and 12. They shall perish, but thou remainest. They shall wax old, as doth a garment. But look at verse number 12. And as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed. But thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. I mean, think of his power that he has. Those are some very descriptive words that Paul uses there with his power, talking about Christ's power. He's got power to sling the stars in the skies and set the planets in motion with such precision that you can tell time by the way the sun rises and sets. Now, if that's created by a big bang, I'm Albert Einstein, okay? Because there's no way something could be just explode and be set in such precision that you can set your clock to it. And then everything's put in its place. Everything is in a certain way. I mean, yes, sir. Do what now? Yeah, navigate by stars. I mean, if it was a big bang, you couldn't do that. You know, that's how people used to navigate on the waters. They navigated by the stars, and if that was all just random, you couldn't do that. He did it with such precision that we know when the seasons begin and when the seasons end. We know in advance, okay, in advance by years, when the moon and the sun will pass by each other. That's precision. That is God doing everything exactly in order. Because if it was a big bang, you wouldn't be able to track it. If everything was just left open for itself to move, and God sat back like some mad scientist just to see how things would turn out, things wouldn't work like that. It wouldn't. So, it's just, that's just amazing power. I've just been thinking about that today. Then we see his existence. So he's superior in his existence because he's creator, but also because he is eternal. Okay? Everything that he created one day will be destroyed. One day he will destroy it. Everything he created. Everything. Okay? Although the suns and stars of space will perish, they will all be destroyed. Guess who will not change? God. God is unchanging in all of it. So when Paul used the words, they shall perish, they all shall wax old, and then he says, shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, it lets us know that everything around us is dying. I mean, the moment we come out of the womb, we're dying. And I mean, just look, I mean, the seasons themselves shows you that stuff lives and dies. I mean, stuff comes back to life, and then it just dies. Comes back to life, and it dies. Everything is dying. The earth itself is dying. It's dying. It's coming to a climax, and God's about ready to just destroy it all. And so, I mean, we're having earthquakes and stuff like that in diverse places, places that normally you wouldn't, nobody would think about it being happening. And so, stuff like that is happening and all around us. And so the earth is dying. Verse 11 is referencing back to verse 10 when it says there that how he has created, where he beginning has laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. And verse 7, then he says, because he uses, well, you see the semicolon there, then he says, they shall perish. So that's saying that the earth is going to perish. They shall perish, but thou remainest, makes mention of, we're going to look at these two things and we'll be done for tonight. His immutability, okay? His immutability. They shall perish, but thou remainest. Where do we get prophetic scripture talking about how God will destroy the earth and how he's going to bring it back anew? It's Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. What did John see? John saw a new heaven and a new earth. And so to see a new heaven and a new earth, that means the old one had to pass away. And so, but in order for a new heaven and a new earth to come down, God had to stay the same. So it's Paul says here that they will pass, they will perish, but thou won't change. You're not going to change. And so Christ remains the same. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Then we see, so his immutability, but then it's also his mastery. And that's in verse 12. It says, thou shalt fold them up. Wow. That shows his ultimate mastery over his creation. He that made all has absolute power to preserve it. I mean, thou shalt fold them up. He reserves the power to preserve it. He reserves the power to alter it. He reserves the power to destroy it. He reserves the power to do however he sees fit. He is the master of the universe. You can pretty much say he's the potter and we're the clay, right? And we are on the potter's wheel, whatever he sees fit. So in him saying that, and Paul writing these verses with verse number 12, and as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. I would think it would probably end up drawing their attention back to Psalm 83 and 18. Psalm 83 and 18 says this. It says, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. And I think it would go one step further and remind them of Psalm 33 and 6, where it says, by the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth. The practical value that we find in this for our hearts is plain. Such a Lord as what we read here is one that can be safely trusted. Okay? And such a Lord also, not only should he be trusted, but he should be reverenced and wholly worshiped. Period. I mean, a God, the God that we serve has this much power. It says that thou shalt fold them up. It means he has all power to do what he wants to do. Okay? So we not only find his immutability and his mastery in those verses, but we also find his consistency. Paul says, thou art the same. This declares to us that there is no variableness in anything he does. He is the same. I mean, Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6, that he declares himself, for I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore you sons of Jacob are not consumed. It shows that he is consistent across the board. He changes not. I mean, we're going to finish this and we'll be done, this last subpoint. Do we really grasp it? Okay? 2,000 years since Christ, or since the cross, okay, men have lived, they've been born, they've lived, they've ruled, and they've died. For over 2,000 years, they've done this. Statesmen, emperors, kings have appeared on the scene and then what? Passed away, right? But there's one glorious person, one glorious man that has remained the same. He's not changed. He's been the same. He will be the same. He's one man who has spanned the centuries, who's not changed. Okay? I mean, his own humanity has spanned 2,000 years. I mean, he hasn't died. He hasn't grown old. He hasn't given up his throne. He hasn't done any of those things. Because he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So what he was yesterday, he is today. And what he is today, he will be tomorrow. Therefore, we can rest with peace, knowing those things. So we'll stop there, and we'll get back next week into his superior and his reward. All right. So any questions there?
That's interesting though, Pastor, because for a human, we sometimes want to say, same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But that doesn't have to be true. Some of those who are lost can change tomorrow and be saved.
Yeah.